Hey guys, welcome to the next Smoke and Flame quick tip. Now this one's going to be on a technique which is really handy in creating not clean plates, but in cleanup where we have luminance shift that if we zoom in on this plate and I scrub through, you can see we go from blue to warm to back to blue. So the camera was on auto, and in this example what we're going to do is just try and get rid of some of these bits here. And I'm going to show you a technique using perspective in action and how we can do this pretty easily without having to do corner pinning, which I'll show you in a second why it'll be problematic. Now, one thing to note is perspective doesn't exist in Smoke, but most of the principles will apply anyway. So I'm in Flame 2015 for this, so let's dive right in. So I'm going to select my clip, go Effects, Create Batch Effects. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just press A and grab an action. And first thing I'm going to do is show you why this is kind of important. So for this example, I want to get rid of the cold and the hot. So the first thing I do is I'd pull out a G mask, press F4, draw my shape, and just do something like that. Go into Object, and then press Shape Track, and we'll see it's tracking fine. This is usually great for most of the time. I'm going to jump back to the frame it started on, just go to backward and Shape Track. And give it a second. And we see we got a pretty good, pretty good track. It's not the best track, but I'll show you why this can be a little bit more problematic and why this technique is actually going to be pretty handy. So I'm just going to swipe to the left, and now I'm just going to go to grab out a mux and Shift Alt, put that in, double click F4, freeze current frame, and I'm just going to press P and pull out a paint node, press F4. And I'm just going to go in, do a recursive clone. Again, zoom in, hold down Q, and then Control to grab my offset. And I'm just going to paint that one frame just to get rid of the cold. See, that looks fine. And I'll do the same, but just change my offset a little for hot. And again, I'll just quickly grab another mux, pipe it in, and just go freeze current frame. Now, if I put in new input and pipe that guy up, and then just go to key and then G mask and pipe him in, press F1. I'm just going to quickly draw my little area around my two shapes. Again, this is just kind of quick and dirty. It's going to do this, and that's going to do for this. So if I press F4, first thing I'm going to do is just throw away the G mask and make this a child of my tracking data. Now if I double click on the axes and press F4 and scrub across, you see it, once it lines up, it's looking good like you'd expect. But the thing that quickly becomes apparent, besides the crappy track I just did, is we're struggling and fighting with the light shift that happens. And this can happen on lots of things. I mean, the other thing you could do would be to do a complete replacement of this, but sometimes that's not what you always need to do. Sometimes it's just little bits of cleanup and things that you will have to kind of take care of. So now I could do this the traditional way and quite frankly be a real pain. So I'm going to show you how I'd approach this using the perspective and action. So I'm going to unpipe that, throw that away, and just grab a new clean action and do Control N, add a new input, and just Shift Alt. Now I'm going to press F4. So there's our source with the dynamic auto white balance, whatever's going on with this camera. I'm going to press F8, so I'm in Object Solo mode. I'm going to go to Object and then Surface and change it from flat to perspective. And I'm just going to pull along here just to pretty much the contours of this nice defined plane we have. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's all depends on if it's a live job. Obviously, it will have to be perfect. So I'm going to set that there. And then instead of tracking in vertices, because right now we're in UVs, because if we press F4, we see we've got our UV map here right now, pretty much. So I'm going to track in vertices. So I'm going to press F8 again. Just Control drag to select my points and go to UV points. And then down here, I'm going to make sure in the stabilizer module, it's set to perspective. I'm going to click in there. And perspective is cool because it doesn't rely on the corner points. It relies on points you put. As many points as you put, it's going to assume are a part of the plane and try and stabilize based on the plane. So I'm just going to Control and click on several of these. And again, the best thing about this is we can add more points. So I'm just going to Control click and add another point, Control click, and just place them where they should be. And I'll just do one more. And now I'm just going to turn on gang And I'm just going to turn on remove and horizontal jitter and vertical jitter. And then I'm just going to click it to backward and analyze. You see we're getting a good track. And then I'm just going to shift click on the shift to see where my keyframe started. I'm going to go somewhere here and go analyze forward and let that go through. You see it's getting a good solid track. Now I'm going to jump out, and if we press F4, you see what we get now is a stabilized plate, taking into account all the skew, and it's doing its best to stabilize this so we can reuse this. It's useful for creating perspective and undistorting footage, but this is a technique that you'll see in a second why is quite cool. So again, we've got that set up. It's doing what we want. I'm happy with where my things are getting cropped off, because really all we care about is this area. So the first thing I'm going to do is just swipe to the left and then just go down to my bin and just press P and grab a paint and Shift Alt him in and press F4. And in the paint, I'm just going to choose sequence. And then I'm just going to zoom in on these and turn on recursive clone, control click, and just make a bit of a smaller bounding box and just paint over these frames. And just, again, this technique allows us to get away with a lot because it's essentially just stabilizing that for us. And we see that's good enough for there. And I'll do the same for the cold one up the top. And if we just kind of do some broad strokes, it's looking all right. And while we're at it, why not get rid of cappuccino? So again, I'm just going to do the same thing. Shouldn't have done that, but it's not a work of art. Again, just scrubbing through, just being pretty crude with this. And again, see, we're getting what we want. And the best bit is, besides this one, which I'll undo, I'll just go to reveal, because that wasn't actually what I was trying to do for this guy. But if I press F1, F4, and we scrub through, we see on the left, our guys are taking into account luminance levels. So we don't have to worry about keyframing or doing a whole replace on this. Now, this is great, but how do we get this back into action and back on top? So I'm just going to swipe to the left and grab this action and back click. I'm going to go duplicate. Now, the first thing I want to do is make the back, the source, untouched. And now the second thing I want to do is just press escape, select the image and press Alt and double click and just press extract. And now we've got a blank media input for him. So I'm just going to Shift Alt from the output of the paint, which is our clone that happens over the space of the animation. And if I select my action, press F4, you see now we're getting some weird values. We're getting double distortions because it's assuming it was the source plate from the original action. So this is pretty easily remedied. If we double click on that, press F4, make sure we're in UV points, and we click 2 vertices and reset all. Now if we scrub through, we see it's taken into account all that stuff for us. And the best bit is, again, we didn't have to worry about any a full replacement for this or keyframing the luminance shift that happens over time. And as you can see, like depending on what area you wanted to do, you could this can really help when there's a lot of light shift going on in the image. So that's it for this quick tip, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more.